Hey everyone, Ariel Adams here with Spending Time, the Blog to Watch podcast. I am joined by Bilal. Hi Bilal.
Hi Ariel, how are you doing?
Good. So much time behind the scenes, yet the first time on the podcast.
It's true. This is my first pod. I'm excited to be here.
Your first pod?
Yeah,
that's only half the term, isn't it?
No, it's a colloquialism for podcast.
You know how I feel about colloquialisms.
A friend of the pod.
Friend of the pod.
Friend of the pod is a thing.
We decided that for this podcast we're going to speak all about Breitling.
The entire thing is going to be about
The entire podcast is going to be about Breitling. Doesn't Breitling feel honored?
They should. They really, really should.
Why are we talking about Breitling? We wanted to give a sort of a blog to watch initial reaction to what we see in the Navitimer 8 collection. Let me just talk a little bit of context. Let's go back to 2017, way back. Breitling was independently owned. And I remember asking them the question, there's a rumor going on that Breitling's going to be sold. Is that true? And I remember them telling me, oh, no. We needed a company evaluation because they did an evaluation to determine the value of the entire company. They're like, oh, we just did that for, I don't know. They gave some reason.
Right.
And
it was, what, 800 million? That was the number that the brand was valued at?
It was something.
80% of the brand, I think, was.
It was under $1 billion. It was under $1 billion.
And the other 20%, I think, was held on by the
family.
Yeah, I believe that's the case.
Whatever it was.
I'm not sure
the message at the time, and this was in springtime of 2017, was Breitling is not being sold.
Yeah.
Then Basel happens. And Breitling's still not being sold. And then shortly thereafter, things changed. And then it turned out that Breitling was sold to a private investment firm.
CVC Capital,
CVC Capital.
I think they own companies like Petco and some like a Visa lottery thing.
Right, so Breitling's right up their alley.
Thing. Yeah, I know.
And then it wasn't clear who was going to be running it because the Schneider family that was managing it before had completely out. So then we learned late in 2017 that George Kern,
the great George
S. Kern, formerly of IWC, left Richemont. He had a pretty top-level position at Richemont, and he was going to be the guy running Breitling. And we didn't know what he was going to do, but we knew there was going to be changes.
Yeah.
Fast forward to recently, when Breitling chose, what was it, Shanghai?
For the launch of the Navitimer 8 collection.
China has not been a market that has traditionally been a high performer for Breitling. However, they are now owned by, I believe, mostly Chinese interests.
I'm not sure if CVC is Chinese, but I think it's clear that that's the market that they're going to try and cater to.
That's true. I'm not familiar.
Pieces and the fact that they launched it in Shanghai.
Right.
When you think of Breitling, you don't think of the Chinese market. It's a very American and Western style brand and has been for the past few decades. But when you consider these new pieces, I think we can assume that there's a new style that's coming and a new logo.
Yeah. So I remember a couple years ago when I was in Hong Kong, I was wearing a Breitling at the time, and I saw a big ad, and this was like one of those big ads on the side of a building in Hong Kong. And it was one of the ads that kind of looked like it would be one that like Travolta was in at the time. Yet it was kind of like a look-alike for Travolta. It was like this actor that was doing the same thing in the pilot's outfit, like something that Travolta would have been in like a year or two earlier.
Next to like a fighter jet.
Yeah, the whole thing, holding the helmet, the whole gear.
Oh, yeah.
And the irony was that it was the exact watch being advertised that was on my wrist.
Which one was this?
This was the Chronomat 44 GMT.
Okay, right.
The exact version even, the exact SKU that was on my wrist was in this ad. And I remember recognizing the fact that Breitling was not one that was traditionally a good performer in Hong Kong. Hong Kong and China are slightly different markets, but for the longest time,
for that market,
Hong Kong's been sort of the gateway to watches in China. It's a little bit, it's of course quite different now. But
just to interject, when I was in China a few weeks ago in Beijing and in Shanghai, I didn't see one ad, store, or a Breitling watch the entire time I was there. So they must know that as of now, their standing in that market is, it's got a lot of room to grow.
Got a lot to grow. I'm actually surfing the Breitling website right now. There is a picture here of George Kern with someone from the Breitling Jet team that they said that they would continue to participate with, but I also heard that Breitling is reducing a lot of its relationships with the aviation world, which has been a stronghold, especially in North America.
Right.
So the point of this conversation is we want to talk about overall the context of what's going on, what we see Breitling doing, and some of our sort of suggestions. So I think we've established, in addition to Breitling having both a new entire ownership and a new leadership, there's going to be a big focus for them to have a little bit more appeal or a little bit more attention in China, probably more markets in Asia, and I'm guessing Europe, because Breitling was probably the most popular in North America. One of the issues that I have is a question, and that is, are the activities, designs, whatnot, that are designed to have the brand appeal to people in China, are those same things going to make the brand appealing in North America? And I would say no. I'd say that the brand, unfortunately, given this direction, might lose out in one market.
I think that's partially true, but I also think that the brand's image, unfortunately, it's got a lot of connotations as it stands in the West. Like the Travolta thing, the like overtly masculine, like it can veer on obnoxious, to be honest. Like how much they're into this image of like the macho guy.
Yeah.
And it does, scare off some people who are into the style of the watch. They're into the movements, the size, the case, everything. But inheriting that image of the brand is something that people, I think, are not as confident about, especially with like a vintage craze, which is, it's not even a craze now, it's, established as a vintage styled watch is a wanted thing in the West and in China. So I think, considering their history, there is room for them to have appeal in the West with these new watches.
So right now we're looking at the various pieces of the new Breitling Navitimer 8 collection. This is the first collection of watches to come as a result of Kern's leadership.
And there's 5 of them.
There's 5 models.
Only 2 are chronographs, which
none
is funny.
None of them are Navitimers in the traditional sense, in that they don't have the rotating slide rule bezel.
Yeah. Do you remember when we were flying to SHH and on Swiss Air they had that little paper thing that actually showed you how to use the slide rule bezel?
Yes.
I wish we took that with us.
So we were on a Swiss Air flight that was just inundated with Breitling marketing. It literally had the official timekeeper of the flight, which was ridiculous. There was 2 limited edition watches, and they were limited only by having a special case back for
on the
Swiss
plane.
Air.
You can buy it. They've got them next to the drink service.
I love you, Breitling. I do not want a watch to remind me of my journey in a flight.
I mean, you can assume that those are given to pilots, maybe, or people who work for the brand.
Okay, so let's talk about
for the airline, rather.
Actual pilots, love Breitling, and I guess it's not all pilots, but I've known a lot of pilots that for them, Breitling has been like a halo product. This has been something that they look forward to getting. And I wanted to explore this notion a little bit further, but I worry that the current activities of Breitling to focus on a more, I'll call it lifestyle audience, is going to take away this core appeal for these aviation professionals, because that's not necessarily what they're looking for. Do you worry about that?
Well, okay. This is a lifestyle audience, sure, but I think it's fair to say that the current brand image of Breitling is about as lifestyle as you can get. I mean, they want a guy who's like, who works at an office to think that he's the biggest badass in the world. The lifestyle that they currently portray is like, if you wear this watch, you are a man's man. So I would push back on that a little bit.
Who else is doing that? What other brands, in your opinion, have that sensibility? And again, that's an American thing, and I think that
the macho.
Yeah.
Hublot.
Okay.
Hublot, I would say, is one.
Who else?
To that degree, those two I think are probably the biggest examples of like loud, brash, I've got some money and I'm not scared to show it off.
And would you consider that, despite some of the perceptions of collectors, Hublot is a brand that does relatively well?
Yeah, I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
No, we're talking about, rather than our perception, overall performance. So I would say that image, while it has some controversy among more conservative interests in the industry, I think worked very well for Breitling.
Absolutely.
So this is something which I'm really kind of afraid of Breitling losing out on. Breitling, because of the Quartz collection, was a halo product for people in the American military especially. So there was marketing designed to make sure that people knew when they were young and in the military, of various types of branches of the military, that Breitling's like the cool professional watch.
Right.
And it really focused on the Quartz models because a pilot wants an accurate wristwatch, doesn't necessarily want a mechanical one. The mechanical ones were seen as very expensive and not particularly useful. Breitling is among the very few traditional luxury Swiss brands that continue to make like high performance quartz timepieces, super quartz.
Right.
That's even a trademark they have, super quartz.
Right.
So my theory is that guys, mostly guys, get interested in Breitling watches when they're in the military. They get out of the military, they stay in the military as a career military person, they're able to afford it, and then the guys underneath that, the guys that are still in a lower rank, see the higher ups with their Breitlings, see the accomplished guys in the jet squadron with their unique Breitling watches, and they all get excited, and this is a wonderful, wonderful marketing ecosystem for the brand that requires a lot of time and attention, and I worry about them abandoning it.
Do you think that's more of a perception, or do you actually know for a fact that these are the kinds of guys that are really into Breitlings and they wear them a lot? Because, for me, or for someone who's not paying that close attention to that specific market of buyer, I would never know really that beyond the marketing image of the pilots who wear this watch, I wouldn't know that it's really such a halo piece for these substantial men that the brand would want wearing their products.
I would have only said that if I had, over the course of years, spoken with many people in and out of watch industry contexts and talked to them about it. I'm talking about pilots. I'm talking about soldiers. I remember one time I was in a car chatting with a guy. This was not related to the watch industry or whatever. He was a pilot that was just basically hired by some rich guy to fly him around. He was like a rich guy's private pilot.
Right.
Who had a military background, and we talk about our careers in the watch industry. The guy was wearing a Breitling, and he was talking this exact story. He was in the military. It was sort of known that this was like the brand if you wanted to have the best durable watch, the coolest one. There was definitely a I made it image associated with it, and he liked it. And again, he wasn't like at a Breitling party, okay? It wasn't like we were hanging out with Breitling. We just had this conversation. I remember one time a couple years ago being in Reno at the Reno Air Races with Breitling, an event that they sponsor, which is cool. And that's one of the only in the world legitimate air races.
Right.
It's so dangerous to do air races that there's so few of them. And that's one of the few ones there. So these pilots that actually care, they follow this. And at the time, they were doing an event where they had a bunch of Top Gun, actual Top Gun guys there, and they had these unique watches that were Breitling. They had their little logo on the dial.
Right.
And I remember listening to the way that these soldiers and pilots were talking about Breitling. This wasn't like, oh, I just got invited to Breitling's party, I'm so happy. These guys bought these watches.
Right.
Okay, they loved these watches. They thought, I remember seeing them pose, they thought they looked so freaking badass.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of chats with these guys. These guys legitimately, from an early time in their military and flying career, learned that Breitling's the cool I made it pilot watch to get.
I think that's true. And I do think that that's actually a global thing, because I just remember this, but my uncle, he was a general in the Pakistani army.
Okay.
And a Breitling is literally the only watch that he like saw that I had once and was genuinely like, I want to get one of those. And I think he might have by now, or he is considering getting one. And there is absolutely a military type of like respect for this brand that it's global.
And you see it
I think
from
that-
guys that wouldn't even consider themselves necessarily watch lovers. Like,
Exactly. I think that's true. But, you know, okay. So to get back to the point though, is you've got these new collections of more of a vintage inspired, scaled down, the pilot type of logo with the wings and the anchor is gone. It's just the scripted B and the text of the brand in a pretty plain font. Now, do you think that these kind of watches can coexist with the type of pieces that we were just talking about? Or do you think that the goal is going to be to pretty much change the perception of the brand overall?
So let's focus again. We're talking about the Navitimer 8 watches that are a big departure in style from sort of the Breitling we know and love.
To say it again, the fact that only 2 of these out of 5 are chronographs says a lot to me.
And there's
about-
nothing actually on
It's
the
a
current Breitling
Navitimer,
website.
and 3 out of 5 are not even chronographs. That's big.
So we're here at the Breitling Instagram page where there's some live pictures of these watches from the debut event in Shanghai. And a Blog to Watch will be there at the New York event in a couple days now. The comments on a Blog to Watch and apparently here on Instagram are quite mixed. Some people really like these, some people would not. And I think I can sum up the way some people feel about it in saying, some people say this is the first Breitling I'd like.
Yeah.
Clearly turned off by the brand up until now.
Right.
Breitling has not ever tried to be a watch for everyone. And then other people who have an existing relationship with the brand who are like, I don't know what this is. You're right.
Yeah.
It's toned down. I guess that's sort of a safe way of saying it.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit bored by them.
Yeah, I've got to
personally.
say, I agree. It seems like a brand that is a follower now, as opposed to a leader with their own image.
Following who?
I mean, considering that, you know, who's in charge of the brand now, IWC, I think, is a very clear link to the inspiration for these pieces. Well, not inspiration, but the DNA is clearly there from what we've seen from IWC.
So you feel
And what
that
we see
you
with
see
these-
is there an aesthetic? Is it a theme? Is it a price?
Vintage, toned down, but still contemporary sized steel sports watches.
So let's talk about the design. So Breitling hired a guy named Guy Beauvais,
Yes.
who we most recently knew from
Chopard.
Chopard, and Guy is a great designer. Guy's
Did
a
he
great
contribute
designer.
in making these watches, or did they just? I believe he just got hired.
I don't know.
After these were announced, so I think he might not have had a hand in these, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, it's
We can check
possible.
on
It's
that.
possible that he did. I mean, I know his aesthetic, and he tends to be clean and legible, and these are clean and legible.
Yeah, absolutely.
They lack a little bit of that sort of machismo that I think we want from Breitling. You know, there's a very
Safe.
Yeah, it's very, very safe and
You know,
conservative.
They're all available in black or blue. You know, like it's, you know, appealing to as a broad of a market as possible.
I think my issue here is essentially this. These are not cheap watches. What was the cheapest price here for 3 hands?
Well, the prices, I believe we only have the price for
The chronograph?
Yeah, the Navitimer 8, which is 7,500 Swiss francs. I would think that the 3-hander is probably going to be around 4,500.
I mean, look, this 3-hander is going to have a sourced movement. It's going to be an ETA. It's going to be a Solita. It's going to be something like that.
Yeah, no, we've got it. It's got the.
What's it have in there?
It runs on the Caliber 17.
Yeah, that's just
You know,
that's just
for-
an ETA.
their basic workhorse movement. It's nothing.
Yeah, that's like a
impressive.
2824, something like that. The problem is that people are going to look at this and be like, you know what, Breitling?
41
I like
million.
it, I don't like it. You haven't told me why it's worth this much.
It's a
Breitling,
Breitling that you can get for
but Breitling
under
had
$5,000.
a look and a feel that maybe even in a picture you said, oh, that's not worth, $5,000, $6,000 bucks. But when you held it in your hand, you're like, oh, wow, that's really quite nice. My worry is that Breitling wants to charge more or less the same with a product that looks substantially easier to produce, and you can't just say, well, you were accustomed to spending this much on a Breitling, now you're going to spend the same amount.
Right.
I'm just not sure that for enough dedicated and seasoned watch lovers that have a good amount of experience, they're going to look at this and say, yeah, that looks like $5,000 watch.
Right.
George Kern out of anyone should understand that value proposition is more important than ever before.
Right.
And my worry is that there's just going to be a pump of marketing and talking about how old the brand is and all this, and then having a lot of these watches which are what I call retailer friendly as opposed to enthusiast friendly. And don't get me wrong, I have no illusions that as a watch enthusiast, I do not represent the mindset of most of the people out there buying watches. But I do know subliminally what a lot of consumers go through in the choice process. And I know that Breitling's success has, until now, been really focused on people who have a high degree of confidence choosing this product. And they chose it because they knew that it was constructed in a particular way that others weren't able to do. It had a design that others didn't have. And then it had a certain macho appeal that others didn't have. It's like, it is the classic version of the Hublot. Hublot is very modern, and this has a little bit more of a timeless feel to it, which is a little bit sort of like elegant. It's like the difference between the guy that drives I hate to use a Lamborghini versus Bentley example, but I think that Breitling's relationship with Bentley, while the watches sometimes are a little weird, was a correct merger of values.
Right.
Now, I worry that they're asking people to spend too much money on something that looks a lot more simple than it is.
Again, we are speculating on that price.
There's no way it's going to be
less.
like $1,500 bucks.
No, it's not going to be $1,500, but it could be $3,500 as opposed to $4,000.
What else can you get out there for $3,500 bucks? You can buy a lot of watch for $3,500 bucks.
You absolutely can. That's
So,
very, very true.
I guess my overall worry is that while trying to appeal to markets like Asia, especially China, where the brand has at least historically not performed as well, it is going to alienate a large percentage of the people, especially in North America, that have helped create the brand image where it is right now. I mean, this is a thoroughly Swiss-run brand. However, it had this feeling where, like, you could tell someone, like, is Breitling an American company? And some people might say, yeah. Like, you felt like it had an American character to it.
Right.
And now when I look at this,
Hublot
I don't
is
see
the
an
same
American
way,
character.
actually.
Okay.
In my mind, I see it as very much having the identity that speaks to Americans way more than anyone else in the world.
I mean, look at this. There's two versions of the chronograph of this Navitimer 8. There's the one with the BO1 movement, which has a cool kind of panda look, or reverse panda. And there's this one with the 7750.
Yeah.
This watch, isn't gonna cost any less than $5,000.
No.
Okay. Does this look like what you would traditionally think about as selling for $5,000 these days?
No. I mean, this is like the Avengers cousin, It's like, personally, I would not wear this watch, but I can see people out there who would be interested in it. Again, I can't imagine, like, it's literally a competition for some IWC models. That's all I see when I see these watches is let's have a watch that had, it goes for this very specific aesthetic of safe, sporty, high-end, but completely inoffensive and lacking character, to be honest. Like, I don't feel anything when I see
They
this
look
watch.
way too inoffensive.
They're
I think that's a
so
good way of looking at it.
inoffensive.
The only Breitling brand character I see, and it's not even unique to their brand really, are these hour markers.
Yeah. And
The hour numerals are there. Other than that, what here actually says Breitling to you?
Yeah.
Other than the logo?
Yeah, nothing. And on this model, the 8BO1, the date window next to the numerals just looks like a bunch of like building blocks that have fallen everywhere.
The date window problem.
That's all.
Always a
just, like,
favorite topic.
It's facing that way. Those numerals are facing that way. The ones under it are facing somewhere else. It drives me crazy. I hate it.
Bilal
I like the rest of
like
I like the
angled
rest of
date
it,
windows.
but
Well,
it's just confusing to me. I
look,
don't like it.
We are people coming from the perspective of we need brands to have a unique character. Like we like watches that have a look that says I am this watch and I'm not this other watch.
Yeah.
Now these new Navitimer 8 watches don't have that for us.
And to be fair, we are looking at pictures. If the finishing, the quality, the hands, the case feels good, that could make up for a lot of these criticisms, to be honest. I'm used to being, not impressed by a lot of the case finishings on watches that are more expensive. So, I will leave that room for them to impress me, but as of now, I'm very, very cautious about what I think.
Look, it's a very normal thing that when a brand sort of starts up in a new way, starts up again, has a change in direction, a change of leadership, that we have sort of a conservative reaction. We're like, but you were doing things fine, don't change.
What did they introduce in 2017? They had that Colt Sky Racer. That was the big thing that they introduced.
The $2,000 Super Quartz one and the super light case. Love that.
You can really see how drastically their mission has changed just in the course of this 1 year. Like, you look at that Sky Racer and then you look at these, it's completely different. Like, it's not the same brand even.
So let's talk about some of the things that we sort of know and don't know and rumors. I hear that Breitling is seriously considering or already made the decision that this year's Basel World is the last one they want to be at.
I've heard that too.
The party is gone. So Breitling was very famous for having several nights in a row the best party in Basel World by far, and probably the best party a lot of people have ever been to. And
it's
the reason,
a shame that I'm going to miss it because it's going to be
Bilal's
my
never
first
gone.
Basel World, and I'm not going to be able to go to the Breitling Racer.
These were legendary parties, and the reason they were so great wasn't just because of what they looked like, but because Breitling hired this team that had like a bunch of performers. So it was like a party mixed with a lot of live entertainment, and each party was at least 2 different themes. The food was great, the drinks were great. Everyone just had an amazing time there. It was abundantly expensive.
Hard drugs?
Not overtly, but why not? And this is the end of an era. So maybe we lament, maybe we miss the Breitling we knew and we loved, and the new Breitling could be something special. But again, it's not run by the same family.
Right.
It's not run by any family. It's run by a large financial company or an investment company.
But it's a private equity firm, I believe. For them to invest in a watch brand, which is not, the most easily profitable industry to invest in, there must be some sort of love, or they must have seen this as a real jewel in their crown, as a prestige acquisition, because this was a $800 million acquisition for an $80 billion firm. It's not the biggest thing in the world to them, but there must be some love of what the brand is for them to have acquired it. So I'm not convinced that they entirely want to just throw everything out and just sell as many watches in China as possible. That sounded really harsh, but
look, I agree. Why would you buy a company if you just want to gut it or not understand it? Especially one which is a watch company, which is a long-term investment.
Exactly.
I think that it's a little bit more complicated than that. I think that when you buy a company like a watch company today, you inherit a bunch of issues. Distribution issues, overproduction issues, marketing issues. It's not that CVC intended to make changes, it's that they had to make changes because what they inherited needed to have fundamental adjustments to the way it does business. So I understand that changes not only need to happen, but are happening immediately because the brand needs to be taken into a direction that helps it grow. An investment company wants a return on investment. So no matter what, they want to start seeing increases in profits ASAP. And that's kind of a shame, but that's inherent in a situation where a company like that purchases a brand. So I think the issue is they know they needed to make changes. They just don't know what changes to make. Kern comes from a background that, at least on the outside, sounds like it's relevant. We can have a disagreement where two people of the same experience can say Kern is great for Breitling or Kern is not the right person for Breitling. The bottom line is he's there. He's definitely trying. I will say 100% that I can see Kern is doing his best to move this asset, which is the Breitling brand, in a direction that CVC Capital wants.
Right.
However, we, knowing how sensitive a brand can be to these changes, are probably justifiably skeptical at where these changes are going to go,
right,
and how well thought out it is. And again, we're here in America and we see how popular Breitling is. We know that it would be a great shame for their bottom line if America stopped being as interested and they stopped getting this, I'll call it, soldier class of people interested from an early age.
Right, but at the same time, we do have to give them the space to have a multi-pronged approach. So say you've got these watches that have the logo that we are accustomed to with the wings, the anchor, and the B, and then you've got a bunch of watches that have the script B font. You know, you look at a Tag Heuer, they've got their watches that have like the Tag Heuer logo, and then they've got like their Heuer logo watches. It's two completely separate identities that have space to exist under one brand. You know, the Autavia and a Formula One, there's no link between those two watches, but they successfully and they cohabitate under the Tag Heuer banner. They can do the same thing at Breitling. You know, you've got the Super Ocean Heritage watch, which is not like the Chronomat or the Navitimer at all, and you've got these new watches that maybe are geared towards a different market, but won't step on the foot of what they market here in the West.
Look, it's entirely possible that this product is specifically designed as a collection to be interested in or to be appealing to the Chinese market.
But like, I can see this having success here too. Like, this is not like a Longines, which is like, you know, American or it's like nice watch, but I don't get it.
Why is the number 8 in the name?
Because of this, it's the Hewitt Aviation Department that they had in the 30s. I believe there was an 8-day of power reserve.
Like a clock?
Yeah. I know that they wanted to incorporate that history into these pieces.
Is it possible that we know the number 8 is a good fortune number in China? Is it possible
yes, I mean,
that this number was thrown in there
and on the date window
to bank on this?
Yeah, even in the press images, the date window has the number 8 on it.
That's actually quite common. They're not the first ones to do that. That's quite common. It's either 8 or 28 is really the common one.
Really?
Yes. Yes.
I start paying attention.
I look at the Navitimer 8. I see the number 8, which seems like a cheap marketing trick. And then the word Navitimer, which is the most recognizable name from Breitling, in a watch that doesn't look like any Navitimer before it. So it's like name that people know, word for a number people like, a more subdued classic design. We might be going off the handle here and just be looking at a product specifically designed to appeal to China.
It should have been
and
a new watch line altogether, obviously.
But they don't like new things in that market. They like established old things.
It's like with the movies. There's no new franchises. There's just a rehash of a rehash of a rehash, because why not use the name that people know?
So we might be looking at this and justifiably thinking this isn't a product meant to appeal to us, but drawing too much of a conclusion about what this means for the entire brand direction.
I agree.
And it's entirely possible that Kern has something entirely different in mind for the American market. Because look, I'm not a Chinese watch consumer, but if Kern is correct this might be that special blend of elements.
Right?
I see this being as a little bit too uninspired and unoriginal.
And, this is not their big show. They're going to show something in March at Baselworld, even if it's their last show. This can't be the highlight of their Baselworld, I don't think. They're going to have some sort of
They're not going to
other new products. So
absolutely.
We're going to get a better idea of his vision when we see some more products coming out. But I think it's safe to say that we can assume what the general trajectory is going to be.
I'm trying to see here what the way they're talking about it. I'm looking again here on Breitling's Instagram page because this is the only place officially they have mentioned anything about these new watches. You go to their website.
I know George Kern's Instagram.
You go to news on the Breitling website, and the last thing is George Kern shaking someone's hand at the Jet team.
Yeah.
And there's no watches associated with any kind. So this is a couple weeks now after this launch. Oh, this is from 6 hours ago? Okay, so this is really recent. But there's nothing even on their own website. Look, this picture is nice. It shows a lot of people care. This is obviously something for a market that they want to be in more. And I'm hoping that at Baselworld, there's more things that are a little bit more appealing to, other people. Here we go. Here's some more pictures of it.
Yeah, those are some. That's a historical piece, I believe, and yeah, a vintage Navitimer.
You want to connect these to the old world of the brand? Sure. It's not what I want on a Breitling, and again, Breitling isn't here to satisfy my tastes, but I know a lot of people that like Breitling. They essentially, if this is the direction they want to go, they need to appeal to an entirely new market of people.
How much is the Tag Heuer Autavia? What's the price on that?
About $5,000.
So this is about $2,500 more than the Autavia.
So you're talking about the new Autavia, the in-house movement, right?
Yeah, in comparison to the Navitimer 8 with the BO1.
I think I made it very clear on a lot of occasions that I'm excited about the Autavia a lot more.
I think it's
got a nice
unanimous,
bracelet.
in my opinion, that it is a more interesting product.
There's a ton of pictures. Look at this. Breitling has been canvassing their Instagram page. It's funny, nothing on their website.
They love the bezel.
Look, here's the old Navitimer, and you can see where they took the numbers, and you can see where the hands were inspired.
It's a shit show. Like, come on.
The old one?
Yeah, it's cool, but I get scaling down a little bit for a consumer.
But that's what the Navitimer's been. They have so many other collections.
Exactly. Just name it something else.
The Navitimer is the busiest dialed elegant watch on the market.
Yeah. You know what? That's probably completely fair. It's part of the quirky charm of it.
And so here is the 8 Avigation. Avigation. That's a long jeans term. The 8 Aviation clock from 1938 that apparently is the source. The funny thing is, this doesn't look anything like the Navitimer 8 watches. I really wish Breitling would have gone on that. Have these hands.
Oh, that's the
hour numerals are a little bit the same, but that's the one. That's the 1938 one. Those are cool hands.
Yeah, I guess the numerals and the minute markers and the hour markers.
If Breitling would have gone with these hands right here that I'm looking at, I would have had a lot more esteem. A lot more esteem.
On the cockpit growing
That'd
be really funny if there was just a weird date window.
If they had this sort of slightly etched or embossed text like this, it's black on black. That would have been amazing. That would have been a really...
It's like a Bell and Ross.
Really cool. Well...
Oops.
It's a whole other... I love how this one, the 27 comments, has far more comments than this. It has... Well, that's 54.
No, yeah, that's 54.
I'm trying to show them. Here we go, this one.
I think that was the first one that they posted.
Oh, that was the first one, so yeah.
Yeah, no.
Wow, there's a lot of comments there.
Yeah.
I want to know. Yeah.
You've got your pen, your iPad, your whiskey, your camera, all the stuff.
All the stuff you want to fly with.
I'm
going to fly with my whiskey and my iPad. Look, they're trying. They're trying. I get it.
Well.
What? What is
well,
that?
It's like a composite. So if you scroll back out, it's the
Oh,
whole grid
and
is.
these things, yeah, it's great.
But of course, it doesn't work when it chops the actual watch's face into pieces.
Let's see the little video here. They call it a stunning rotating bezel. So that's Guy Beauvais.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. So he was involved.
Maybe, yeah. Or, I mean, look, this might be fine.
Right.
Shading with a pencil.
Okay. Legendary Future. That's their hashtag.
Legendary Future. You know what? I think someone needs to teach the marketing people the notion of a paradox.
I don't think they need any more lessons in paradoxes.
Oh, really?
I mean, maybe in a subtle.
To be continued.
The subtlety of paradoxes, maybe, but
Okay, so-
Legendary Future.
The reason we're having this
Past meets
conversation
present.
is
The future is now.
exclusively about the fact that consumers see these changes in brands that they sort of know and love, and they want to know what's going on. What do we think about it?
Yeah.
I don't want to say I'm concerned about Breitling. I think that Breitling is a dynamic enough company that they'll have products for a bunch of people. But I can say that the obvious direction right now, at least with their 2018 efforts, is China. There has been no mention of any kind as to what their focus on America is, but we do know that there's a scaling back in their relationships with aviation-related events. We do know that there's a scaling back of the modernity, right? They take away the aviation things. So they take away the wings. The designs that we've seen so far are
Again, though,
definitely more
that
on
could just
the
be
retro side.
for those collections, not for the brand altogether.
Right, but we're just talking about what we've seen.
Right.
Kern has talked about expanding the brand in other areas. Like, why do we have to stick with just aviation? They want Breitling to be a watch that has timepieces and products for various different, I'll call them pillars or worlds.
The Super Ocean is a solid non-aviation offering from the brand.
Sure, and I guess that means there's going to be potentially more. Maybe we'll see some of this at Basel. Maybe it'll take a little bit later. Look, I think there's a lot of room for Breitling to cut down the collection. If there's anything that I think Breitling could be easily accused of is having way too many watches to choose from.
Them and every other brand, yes.
Okay, you're right. I mean, it's not alone, but like, look
But
here,
like-
they have the Navitimer collection, the Chronoline or the Chronomat Super Ocean, Avenger, Transocean, Galactic, Super Ocean Heritage, Mount Brilliant, Colt Professional, and within each of those,
Yeah. So
you
if
have at
go
least
to
6 or
their
7 models.
Online store. If you go to buy online and you click on the Avenger, there is a ungodly amount of options, I think.
The Avenger.
Yeah, I remember clicking on it once.
Okay, so we have here 4, 8, 12, 6,
that's not too
17
bad.
models. So
That's
that's
not too bad.
17 just within the Avenger. Let's look at the Chronomat. The Chronomat's got to have.
But when you click on these, then there's even more sub options.
Oh, these
I
are only,
believe.
but see that these are only 40. These are only
Yeah.
the 44. So there's a Chronomat 41, Chronomat 44, Chronomat 47, and then you have the chronograph, you have the GMT, and then you have all these other different things. This is actually, even on here, I think this is a small assortment
Right.
of the overall models. They don't want to show you all of them. They know that's a lot. They're like, let's just put some of them
Yeah.
up.
The
Okay, so
Super
let's
Ocean.
end by telling Breitling what do we want them to do. If we could choose as guys that like Breitling, what would you tell Kern? What's your message to him?
Don't play it too safe. You're at a different brand. Don't turn this into the brand you just ran. Try something new. That's my only advice. I'm not saying that he's not going to do that. I'm just saying don't exclusively play into this scaled down vintage,
When you say scale down, be more precise.
When I'm saying scale down, I mean, the boldness of the brand is completely castrated. With the three-hander in this new collection, I think is literally just a drawing of any watch. There's no
castration, Mr. Kern.
there's no pulse in it, I think. I think there's no pulse in 4 of these watches. I do think that the in-house B01 has some potential if in person the finishes and the quality are what we'd expect from a $7,000 watch. The other ones, I'm not convinced. I feel nothing.
But the funny thing is, by the time this episode of Spending Time goes up, David from our team will have met with the brand in New York and seen the watches. So I think it's important to probably do a follow-up of this after.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've had a chance to get to know the brand a little bit, but these are initial reactions, and obviously we've thought about this quite a bit. We obviously have a lot of opinions and feelings on the matter. Breitling is a brand that we want to do well. We really do. We love it, and we come at this perspective from one of fondness for the brand, and also a sense of wanting to protect the thing about the brand that attracts people like us, because we worry. Because we represent the tastes of at least some consumers.
Yeah.
And those consumers could feel that the brand has alienated them. And we've seen that a lot in brands where they move directions, and in an attempt to open up some markets, they end up alienating their base.
Yeah.
And we just don't want Breitling to alienate their base.
Just to butt in, what is the point of a day and date watch? Is like a day window just too small? The MON isn't long enough? You need the whole, name of the day of the week.
Do you
up
want
there?
me to tell you? It's a very simple answer.
It's. I mean, I know that there's an answer, but like, good lord, I really find these.
The answer is Rolex.
Yeah.
Day date.
Yeah.
The Rolex Day Date has it in a very similar layout.
So Steel Breitling must also have it. It's like, come on.
Look, they've made a decision. What do other people in this market know and love?
Yep.
Okay, the Rolex Day Date is a popular one. That's aka the present. So right now we're looking at a particular version of the Navitimer 8. It might just be called the Day Date.
It is the day. It's a day date. Yeah.
Right. So this has the sort of fuller date. The fuller day of the week window. So it spells out Wednesday as opposed to having WED that you see on a lot, and it has at the top of the 12 o'clock position. It's symmetrical.
Yeah. It's a non-chronograph Navitimer that tells you the day and the date.
I still can't get over the fact that as Navitimer watches, none of these in any way, shape, or form have a rotating flywheel bezel.
The bezel does rotate on all of them.
Yeah.
All of them have a rotating bezel.
With one little marker at the top.
Yes.
Which is something that like some Hanhart and Tutima watches have, and no one ever talks highly of those.
That's just mean.
Well, look, it's a rotating bezel with one little thing at the top.
Yeah, that's a tiny little...
Yes, it's traditionally something on old Pilot watches, but if you want to actually use your rotating bezel, people are just going to sit there and play with this thing.
Yeah.
It looks nice. I mean, look at this. It looks like a bare bezel. It looks like it shouldn't even turn at all. Like, there's no reason for it to turn.
There isn't any reason for it to turn.
I'm really glad they didn't throw like a tachymeter scale on there.
Oh, yeah.
But, I mean, this is... They could have put something, little circles or something here.
That bracelet, that's not new, right? Like, they've had that angular link.
Where they're slightly diagonal?
Yeah. That's been a feature of their watches.
Yeah, that's
for a while, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, they got to tie it in a little bit here with their heritage. The buckle, this looks totally different. This looks like a little bit of, I don't want to say a downgrade, but the buckles... Well, actually, this actually might be nicer than the ones on some of the old ones. I just like they have this micro adjust on some of the DePoint clasps for the straps, which is so cool. And I just wanted them to put that on more things. Okay, so we're going to sort of end it here. We just had a nice long chat about the new Breitling. Under new ownership and new leadership, the first model collection again is the Breitling Navitimer 8. This has been sort of the blog to watch reaction on it. We're optimistic about the future of the brand, but we have some strong thoughts about this. Let us know your thoughts about Breitling's new direction. If you have any advice for the brand, make it in the comments, and we will see you next time.
Take care, guys.